Hello, Internet. My name's John Kulas. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial organizational psychology. Big fan, apparently, of Beverly Hills Cop. I think that's true. White t-shirt, generic wearer. 10-year user of R for statistical applications for the last 7 or 8 years. I've also been using R to author things, make things that aren't traditionally thought to be made of with a statistical platform through these what I'm calling literate programming principles. And so every week I get together with some of my compatriots here who are also working on authoring projects, things like papers and technical reports and websites and dashboards and all kinds of fun stuff. Oh my. So every week we get together at this time, 7 o'clock Eastern on Tuesdays. And actually, it's become kind of an inconvenient time, but I don't want to. We already switched it once. I'm not going to switch it again. Um, at least for the foreseeable future. So we get together and hang out for about an hour and make ourselves available if there's anyone out there who's also interested in using R as an authoring platform. Maybe you have questions about how to get started, or maybe you've gotten started and just hit a obstacle, or maybe you just want some people to bounce ideas off of. It's kind of the idea and why we're here. And so we use that academic metaphor of office hours. We all know each other from initially an academic setting, and so it's kind of comfortable for us. And so every week we just hold this open office hour, roughly an hour or so. We'll hang out, and if anyone's interested in using our author, we're here for those sorts of questions. We also, this has been, it's kind of turned into the focus of these. I didn't want it to be the focus, but the focus of these is kind of turned into different feature explorations in terms of these authoring products. Some different tweaks and different adjustments and slightly different flavors that we can add to these different authoring projects or products. I'm sorry. And so every week we've been exploring something. Last week we, for the first time, took a look at this extension called Excalidraw, and Excalid we'll revisit that tonight again. Um, but Excalibur was kind of neat, so we decided to extend it into this week. Not only because it's neat, but also there were a couple of questions last week that we wanted to address. I was supposed to do some on offline homework, and I didn't do my offline homework because you maybe some of you have noticed, but I just dropped a little snip video today, and so one of the things that's been kind of on my plate that I wanted to get out as quickly as possible is we spent so many weeks on R's surveying capabilities using the relatively new package Survey Down. I wanted to slice and dice what turned out to be about 6 or 7 hours of live stream into a short, digestible, hey, this is what I need to know if I want to use it kind of resource. And so I just finished editing that today. It's a little repetitive, but that's a good learning kind of tool, repetition, so that's okay. It's a little choppier than normal, so I don't know if people, I don't know how popular those have been, but I end up getting so bored with those that I put in little jokes to myself, and I had to really kind of handcuff myself on this one because it is it's jumping from topic to topic so much that throwing one of my little personal jokes in there probably wouldn't have been a good idea, because I don't know, it's it's not as linear and nicely presented as I would like it to be. But if you watch it, maybe give me some feedback and let me know. So tonight, what we'll do is we'll first revisit what happened last week, and then we'll get into Excalidraw. I almost called it Excalibur, but Excalidraw the extension a second time here, and hopefully that'll be enough for Excalidraw. Hopefully we'll cover it enough where we won't have to hit it again next week, because Pasquale, one of our co-hosts that shows up, he had a good suggestion before the holidays, and I think that suggestion, what I think we might have reframed it a little bit, but the suggestion became, maybe let's do a session on just how to get started with this. And I may have lost sight of that a little bit in terms of that is one of the purposes of this, is to encourage people to use these platforms as authoring platforms. And so I think next week, if we get through Excalidraw this week, I think we'll probably have maybe a little roundtable on best strategies to get started with this. It sounds like kind of a neat idea to me. Okay, so anyway, so getting into today's topics, let's go ahead and do our transition here for what happened last week.
Our story opens today in the post office at Frostbite Falls, Minnesota, a tiny Northwoods hamlet with a total population of 48.
Of course, that's during the summer rush.
This is the postmaster, James J. Nearly, sorting the mail. Here is the pigeonhole belonging to the town's most illustrious citizen, Rocket J. Squirrel. Next to it, the pigeonhole belonging to his pal, Bullwinkle Moose. And next to that, the pigeonhole belonging to... well, who are you?
What else? I'm a pigeon.
But it is the spot belonging to Bullwinkle that we're interested in. For going into it right now is a letter which will change the whole course of Rocky and Bullwinkle's lives.
And if that's not a good beginning to a story, I don't know what is.
Just
Well, that's a good cliffhanger. So we have been doing these in sequence, so you have to tune in next week to see what the event is that's going to be so monumental for Rocky and Bullwinkle. I don't know if they said Rocky and Bullwinkle or just Bullwinkle. Anyway, for us, last week, the monumental aspect of last week was our first exploration into Excalidraw. And I think I have, yep, there's a hyperlink on there. If you access the slides are available as always in the comments. The slides this week will take a little longer to load because they have some goop on them. And that goop is this Excalidraw extension. So if you'd like to learn more about it, more than what I'm speaking about, you can certainly access the slides and then hit some of these hyperlinks in the slides. Notably here, the Excalidraw heading on this slide over the young man's image here, the young man who's drawing the sword from the stone. So in terms of the installation, this is hyperlinked as well. So if you follow that hyperlink, it'll bring you straight to an installation instruction page. And so don't need to, these extensions are a little different. You don't need to install a package. You rather from the terminal, you're going to directly input a command, and that command is to add an extension. And so if you just copy this little bit here, quarto add parm quarto excalidraw, that will give you an extensions directory if you don't already have one within your current working directory. Now, the package authors of all of these different extensions that we've been trying out, and by the way, an extension is a capability within one of these products that doesn't come baked into the fully vetted Quarto platform. And so again, we've kind of mentioned some cautionary tales about these where it does seem like adding this goop, it's fun to play with, but there may be some unforeseen unintended consequences of adding all of these in terms of conflicts, in terms of bugginess, and that sort of thing. But fairly universally, and I get why they do this, and I think it's probably a good idea. The package authors of not just the Excalidraw extension, but extensions in general, so these extended capabilities on these existing platforms, if you're going to use an extension, the recommendation is, well, let's go ahead and do it within a project folder. And project folders are just one way to work within RStudio. And you can do you can also have a project within Positron, a different IDE. You can also have a project folder within VS Code, which is another popular IDE. And so we've been operating in project folders as well. But if you're operating within a project folder, when you input that command to add an extension, it's going to add an underscore extension folder within your project directory. Now, that's not all that important, but there's a bunch of stuff that's in there that facilitates the capabilities of the extension. And so if you are in the same project folder and you have multiple extensions, you'll only have one underscore extensions folder, but there may be multiple extensions in there. And so if you want to play with Excalidraw, not in our slide deck, but on your own personal projects, the recommendation is to go ahead and create a project folder and then do that add Excalidraw extension command within the project folder. You'll see an underscore extensions folder created. And then after that happens, all you really need to do to enable Excalidraw within a Reveal.js slide deck. And so what you're looking at is a Reveal.js slide deck. It's one of the 3 default presentation styles that Posit makes available through their products, primarily Quarto. And so the way that you activate it, once it's been downloaded in your extensions folder, is you simply add these 2 lines here that you see in the YAML. Now, and again, a YAML is the front matter of your file. And we've been calling them QMD files. QMD is just the 3-letter extension at the end of the file name. And so here on line 4, we say that what we want to produce is a Reveal.js slide deck. And then on lines 5 and 6, we say, also, I want to enable this add-on feature called Excalidraw. And so if we go ahead and if you notice, typically what we have on these slide decks, you don't see that little palette in the bottom. Now, if you watch, if I navigate around, that palette is there. So it's there on the front page, it's there on the title page. I didn't acknowledge it, but it's been there the whole time. Now, it's been there the whole time because on this slide deck, we also enabled Excalidraw. But if we want to see what Excalidraw does, we simply press that palette button, and then we get into this whiteboard type environment. Now, last week, oh, I'm sorry, I've been talking. I should have been paying attention.
Vamos a ver, ¿qué es lo que pasa con los alcaldes? ¿Qué es lo que pasa con los alcaldes? ¿Qué es lo que sí, qué está pasando con los alcaldes?
I'm sorry, Diego, I didn't add you.
Hey, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Good. Just came back.
Did you hear it all? What we were talking about with this? What we're checking out today? This Excalidraw feature.
It's like a whiteboard extension of the Sharingan. No, the Quarto.
Yeah, the Quarto. Now, it's pretty easy to work with. And one of the things last week, it's intuitive. So one of the things last week that we saw, and I thought was really neat, was some of these options on the left. So we can have different fills. So there's a solid, there's kind of a plaid, and there's a, I don't know, what do you call that? Chicken scratch or something? But the neatest thing that I thought we had here was this sloppiness scale. And so this is the hand drawn aspect of it. So you can have a nice kind of straightforward kind of, regular article type image, or you can make it look more like it's actually been hand drawn. And that hand drawn, there's a little bit of sloppiness to it. And they actually call it sloppiness. I think it's an accurate descriptor. It's pretty cool. And then the edges you can play with, rounded or squared. They make some of these stylistic decisions for you in terms of, they're making the rounding choice for you with whatever their internal algorithm is, but they're fairly they seem to me to be like good style choices. They're style choices that most people would probably tend to have, I would think. And then the thing, okay, well, let's exit it for now, because what I'd really like to focus on is what we're going to do today. And what I thought we would do today is further explore something that we just kind of stumbled across last week. And that thing we stumbled across last week, which kind of blew my mind a little bit was the integration of mermaid diagrams. And the reason it blew my mind a little bit was once you get your mermaid diagram on that Excalidraw palette, everything is linked. So there's no, if you were to do this and making like something like a theoretical model, people like Diego and I, we often deal with theoretical models that are represented on something like a whiteboard space. Now, historically, using an editor like PowerPoint, which for years was very popular. I'm going to date myself here because that's probably not the. I don't know, Diego. If you were tasked with creating a theoretical psychological model to explain something, what program would you go to?
Like graphically,
Yeah.
I guess that I would go to the package that we could make graphs. We explore several one of those, right?
We did,
Once.
yeah. So no, but I mean, if you weren't talking to me, and it was just like it needs to be done, and you could do it outside of R.
Uh, I would probably use just Word or
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So maybe we can try that too. That makes sense. I think people use Word. They use Microsoft products. So for years, I would go into PowerPoint for that sort of thing. But the, but
maybe I would use Tableau if I would try to learn to do it in Tableau.
Oh, okay. That's a good one too. I know I've heard people talk a lot about that. I haven't played with it. Um, the thing about this is if you port over into Excalidraw a mermaid diagram, which yeah, that was one of the platforms that you and I looked at in terms of diagramming capabilities of R. Um, all of the objects are by default they're linked, and I'll show you that in a second. So maybe Diego, let's do this. Do you we'll play with this because I already have Excalidraw enabled here, but I really want to play with that mermaid integration and see what we can do with it. The other thing that I wanted to look into, and I intended to look into it offline, but I didn't get a chance to, was this concept of sharing. Now, Alicia popped by last week, and she had a very good question once we were looking at this, and that question is, can other people collaborate on that? Now, I did look into it with Excalidraw outside of this. So outside of a presentation that you have, yes, that's enabled, and that's a feature in there. But within the slide deck itself, it's not something that's intended to be a focus of using this within a slide deck. So I thought maybe we could play around with some ways to get around that, some ways to maybe trick it a little bit. But to start with, let's do a mermaid diagram. So Diego, do you have a favorite psychological model that you have that we could try to replicate? I know I'm putting you on the spot, or just any.
Psychological model. Let me think.
You're gonna come up with like L. McPherson or something. Well, I thought I dated myself with what did I say earlier? L. McPherson. That's really gonna date me. Do you even know who L. McPherson is, Diego?
No.
Let's see. She was a supermodel when I was your age. We can hopefully do a safe image search here. Yeah, that's L. Cutie. But yeah, psychological model, I think, is what we can look for. And what I'm talking about is something with directionality. By convention, we have explanatory variables on the left, and then we proceed to the right, and the right is usually representing something that we're trying to predict, what might be called a dependent variable or an outcome variable. This here looks like a fairly complex psychological model. I was hoping to find one that's a little less complex than that. Here, something like this. No, that's actually not too bad. I have no idea what it's trying to explain. What's it trying to explain? Model for the research of medication adherent. I don't know, let's find something fun. Model of model of what? Schizophrenia?
How about the um, self-determination theory model?
But that's
The
just
one.
a pyramid, right? You're talking about Maslow?
No, 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 self-determination. You know that says that autonomy, like performance is, um, autonomy regulates
Okay.
uh, the relationship between job performance and motivation. You know that
Well,
if something is the moment you get an external reward for something, you're not as motivated or something like that, as opposed to being intrinsically motivated.
okay. Well, do you want self-determination theory, or should we look for intrinsic motivation theory? Are you saying they're kind of similar, or one can be used to explain the other one?
Yeah, they're similar.
Well, we definitely had more pictures when we just looked at self-determination theory. Um, See, this is what happens in psychology: is you have the main thing, and then a bunch of people try to tweak it a little bit. I wouldn't mind having. So, is there a moderator in that, Diego? A common moderator? Here's kind of what you're talking about. I think. Let's take this. Let's see if we can do something with this. And this may be just quackery. I don't know. See what these people are. Lin, Vu, and Win. Oh, and Wu. There's a Vu and a Wu. Woohoo! Let's see their picture. And I don't mean the picture of the authors. I mean this picture. Whoa, it's big. Okay, so let's take this and see if we can replicate it. So I'm going to try to replicate this within our Excalidraw canvas. And so the kind of way in which we were able to access mermaid capabilities last week was in this more tools option here in the on the top of the slide deck. And so, the laser pointer was something that was kind of cool that we played with a little bit. We didn't play with these other options, but we did see this mermaid to Excalidraw, and that really intrigued us. Um, so what we have here is we have a default mermaid diagram with some placeholder information in it. And I think we can just probably replace, it's not going to let me minimize. So that's a little bit unfortunate. Let me see if I can minimize my slide deck, and that might help. So hopefully we'll now be able to look at our model that we're trying to replicate. Man, I hate that auto fit. That thing that's driving me nuts. It always wants to, like, no, I know how I want it. It always thinks it knows how I want it.
It just clicks when left or right.
Yeah. So, okay, so we got to go left to right, right? And we already know that's a simple command in Mermaid. By the way, there's a snip tutorial on these diagrams as well within on this channel, on the forensic psychometrics channel. So there is a square box here for extrinsic motivation and intrinsic. So we'll just go extrinsic. And that goes to positive affectivity. These letters, Diego, if you remember the letters, they just are kind of like tags. So if we wanted to later direct one box to another, we could just call it by the tag. So for example, A or B or C, I don't think they're not necessary, but they don't hurt anything. So we're going to go from extrinsic motivation to not shopping, but to positive affectivity. Just call it positive affect. I think I can probably do some HTML in there. Nope. So we'll look into that and see if we can do a hard break if we want to do one. The shape of that positive affect box, here it's a square instead of a rounded square. So I think I should be able to change it a couple of different ways. But let's start by just duplicating what we see in our picture. So I also have, I'm gonna double this up because we also have intrinsic motivation that's also going, I guess I can call that intrinsic. I guess it does want the tag to positive affect. Where did that go? Why do I not see that? I wonder if it doesn't like my lettering system. Yeah, the lettering system is actually affecting the sequencing that we're seeing here. So I'm gonna have to go A to C and then B to C. There we go. I don't remember that. Diego, do you remember that? That those letters had some sort of control over the actual placement of the model component itself. Anyway, I don't remember that. Then we'll be going to, why did we lose positive affect? There we go. We have positive affect in the middle, and then we have positive affect going to psychological well-being. You doggone stupid thing. It's gonna. So here I'm gonna go from positive affect, which is C. I don't need to label the line itself, but it should be psychological well-being. We'll just call it well-being. Looks like they use lowercase, all one word, so we'll follow that. So well-being is the ultimate thing that they're trying to predict here. Oops. So what we don't yet have represented is psychological safety. So this one's going to be interesting. So where can we put psychological? I don't know if we can control where psychological safety is here, but that's okay because we should be able to exert some control once we get into Excalidraw itself. So let's call it, I'm going to call this E because we want to put a D in there. We'll put a different shape around that and see if we can modify it. Call it safety. And now we want to see if we can get it to go to not a box itself, but to the line. Now this is going to be a tricky part because I don't think we ever figured out how to do this. So I'm just going to send it to well-being for now. And if we need to, we can come back to that. So again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to somewhat replicate what this picture we have on our left using mermaid syntax, which we're not experts at.
Now it's more of a co-founding variable than a mediator or moderator, whatever that is.
Yeah, it's definitely not moderating yet. Maybe, Diego, if you want to look up the mermaid help page and see if we can direct an arrow to a line instead of a box.
Let's see.
That'd be helpful. But check this out while you're doing that. Like, take a quick break because let me show you this. This blew my mind. So this is why I'm so geeked out about this. I'm gonna hit the insert button here. Now I have my image. Not a big deal. I can get rid of that sloppiness if I want, or I can add sloppiness. I kind of like this salmon background. I think I'm gonna put that on there. Now I should be able to. I can do all kinds of tweaks here. The tweaks that I'm most excited about are um, are these tweaks. Do you see that, Diego? Do you see how everything's linked?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that not awesome? Like, we don't, if we were doing this in PowerPoint, in Word, in whatever, we would be tinkering with these individual nodes and these individual linkages, not as an entire object. This entire object is linked. So it's keeping all of those associations. I love it. I like absolutely love that. So you can play with this, in all kinds of different ways. I should be able to drag, if I wanted to
Yeah,
drag
and
that.
Word it would be a pain because
It would be a
every
total.
time you change your mind on the position of one of those squares, having to make the arrow again and adjust the size and everything.
Yep. And so, we can do that here if we wanted to do that. So this would be one way to do the moderation. And now if we look at, oops, I guess it's on the up they want it. So we put that up here. It's really,
That's cheating. You have to do everything programmatically.
no, you sound like me. I agree. We want to do everything fully reproducible, um, but this is so just kind of neat um, that it has these kind of built-in capabilities like this. So let's see, we're psychological safety. I should be able to fully edit it, so I should be able to go psychological here if I want. This is really, really easy to play with. And it's still linked to my arrow, so if I wanted to be a little funky with it, I could. I have two more arrows. Let's see if we can add an arrow. How do I add an arrow? There we go. And then if I want to bend it, I guess I could go like that. In our picture, it's bended. Bended? Bendy? And I got another arrow coming down. And if that's too thick, should be able to go thinner here. I think I can copy those as well. So my right click doesn't look to be working all that well. So maybe I'll just do it here. And in terms of a replication of the picture that we just pulled off the internet there, I mean, that's really quick, really easy. If we wanted to be a little more, if we wanted to be even more accurate here, I'm sure we could add, if you look at the self-determination theory, there's a dotted box around it. We should be able to add a dotted box. So this thing's kind of in my way. How do I get rid of that thing? Well, that's a little unfortunate. I wanted to have everything kind of viewable. Looks like I'm gonna have to move this over. So let me select this, make it a little bigger, zoom, and then I'm going to take off those rounded edges. I'm gonna take off that, and then we can even, they don't have a pink one, but they should. I think pink looks a lot better. Like Diego, next time you and I publish something, we're gonna do a pink model, a salmon model. I like it. And this font. Now, one of the things that I did look into offline was I looked into font. They seem to be playing up this kind of handwritten kind of feel. So the fonts themselves weren't that easy to play. You can modify them, but it's not something that is incredibly easy to do. Now we could add self-determination theory here. We should be able to add that pretty easy. There's just a text box.
Sounds like something you would put in a blog. This whole image looks like something, from one of these blogs or web pages from a startup company.
Yeah,
The types that
like,
they put on LinkedIn. They put the link to the newest article or entry they have about some trendy topic.
yeah, because they always like to have that kind of handwritten note kind of feel to them too, right? So this definitely has that. Um, I am getting a little bit of that kind of like you're gonna have within. Whoop, let me get. Sorry, I was gonna mute myself. I got a sneeze coming on here. I couldn't find my mute button. Kind of like what you have within those other standard drawing packages. There's a little bit of, it's not always easy to select the bit that you want to select. There is some stuff. Again, there's that internal logic that is being used. So we do have things linked to each other. So you see some of these arrows just kind of like in odd locations. So I'm gonna take this one off and redo this one, I think. So we wanted that going down, and then we wanted another arrow coming down as well. I don't want dots, I want a solid line. So I don't know, that looks doggone good to me, I think. And again, the aspect of this that I'm really excited about is this kind of already, and we we disabled it for some of this because of our playing around. But you can see the linkages that we actually have to objects here. So the logic that's being used on here to tweak a model, this is something I think I'm going to come back to. I can see myself using this again. If Alicia's here, Alicia and I have a project with a model that was made in Word, and I think if we redo it, we're going to go ahead and redo it in here because I think I'm really liking this. So let's look at this compared to our model here again. So our model, I don't know, which one do you like better, Diego? Do you like the original one or do you like ours?
Ours, much more.
And you're not biased at all?
Nope.
I just did a control A to see if we can do kind of a fast fill. And yeah, so
I like the green one.
you like the green? Need to undo that. And that's so quick and easy too. I mean, this is really, I didn't look at the documentation at all for this. This is all just intuitive. Now, one thing that with regard to Alicia's point last week and that we were going to address a little bit this week in terms of collaboration, one of the things I wanted to check out here is how we can save this. And so I'm going to try to export it and see. Oh, that looks not bad. Looks like I can have a dark mode as well. Embed, I'm not sure what it is. Embed. Let's go ahead and save that as a PNG, just on my desktop. And then maybe we'll pull that up and see how that renders, what it actually looks like. I don't know if you can tell or not, but on this preview, it looks like some of it's been pixelated a little bit, so it doesn't look quite as crisp and clear. But let's go to my desktop.
Maybe in R you can increase the number of pixels and everything. That's what I did for an image. I created ones for work. I created an image that was a bar graph. It was 130 bar graphs.
130?
Yeah. And I
Good
so I
thing they
just
got Good thing they got Mr. Loop to do that.
yeah
Are
yeah
you
I did it
using?
with a loop. And but then to save it to a PNG, you can specify the size of the PNG if you wanted to make it really big and pixelated. That way you can zoom in, you can still see all the bar graphs, even though it's a ridiculous amount of them. If you zoom in, you can see them good, one by one.
Yeah, yeah, yes, I could look into that. But it looks to me like it's good. So it looks to me like it's coming up with a very nice image. One thing we could do is I'm gonna try it this 3 times here, and we'll see if we can overwrite what we have and see if that maybe comes through even a higher definition here. Uh, where the heck did it go? Stuck it at the bottom. Yeah, that's even. So I guess if you really wanted, wow, yeah, that looks great. I mean, the resolution's fantastic. If you really wanted, if you're really worried about, uh, like how this looks on something like a poster, right? If we're doing a conference poster or something, you just save it as an image of 3 times the size. Again, if we're in R, we would probably just call this up as an image. So this is now available, and I could call this up, in a slide, in a document, in a paper, wherever we actually want to pull it up. It's easy enough to tweak these as well. If I wanted to, instead of just saying intrinsic, if I want to say intrinsic motivation, looks like I'll have to increase this box a little bit. Extrinsic motivation. It's even, so that was an autocomplete, which I wasn't expecting. I put a hard return in here, but it seems to have enough logic where it doesn't need a hard return. It'll just do that return for you. I guess we could call this psychological well-being, right? If if uh, if Renata was here, she'd want us to say psychological. That's one of her constructs. So let's go ahead and see if we can export this again. And then maybe we'll just look at other options that we have with this. Dark mode looks great as well. Look at that, it changed all the black text into white just automatically. I can probably tweak that a little bit. I like light mode, and go ahead and save that again. Now one thing I guess we could double check is sometimes those SVGs have transparent backgrounds by default. I'm curious if maybe it does. So I'm going to export this as 2 different images. And we'll see. Wow, look how big those things are. They're big honking images. One of the ways that we can see if it's transparent or not, I have a black background in my slide deck here. So we could just, if I put these in my project folder, which again, the project folder is so massively overloaded at this point, I'm probably going to go in there and delete these after I put them in. I do have an image folder here. I'm going to put them in. Come on, thing. I don't know how I get these tile views. I like the detail view a lot better. I'll go ahead and put those images in. I'm going to change their names because their names are annoying. Where'd the other one go? Got so many images here that I lost it. That's okay. It'll show up in my environment here, so I should be able to see what it is, where it is. That's weird. I thought I only changed the name of one file, but it changed them both. They must be somehow linked. Anyway, I'm just curious to see if either of those images has a transparent background. So I'm going to call it out. And my preview should pop up. And the PNG does not. That's what that white is actually showing. And SVG probably does not either. I'm sure we could go in there and we could probably go in there and tweak that. Now this is interesting though. Look at, they are different. The SVG, the font's changed. Can you see that,
Yeah.
Diego?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it did change to like normal or
The
maybe
color
it's
is
just more
different.
stretched.
Yeah, the color's different. The font's different. The font weight is different.
Yeah, it's not like handwritten like one on top.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
look at the D of self-determination.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's okay. I don't know. What do you think about this thing though, Diego? I don't know why I like it so much, but I really like it.
Yeah, it's neat.
I would definitely use this to create a model. Now, we lost it, so good thing we saved the picture because we actually
And if you create it here, with using the UI interface, can it then give you the code somewhere?
no. Wow. I don't think so. I mean, we can inspect. Should be able to inspect.
The mermaid code.
Well, no, there's no mermaid code for this. This is just gonna be. It looks like it's in a browser, so this should be HTML code. Copilot's not gonna help, but this isn't intended to be a mermaid product. This just has mermaid capabilities in it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So most of the time when you make stuff, mermaid's got nothing to do with it. But yeah, we could also make a model here, and say Millie hungry.
she cries.
Cries. Or food. Eats. Eats is better. Then we can make this green. I don't know. I really like this, actually. One thing, I guess, we did run a little short on time again. One thing is, let's go ahead and take... Hey, Alicia. Glad you're here. Sorry, we didn't... Your question about collaboration, it's not going to be easiest to collaborate within a slide deck using Excalidraw. However, if you use Excalidraw outside of the slide deck, it is fully enabled to have full collaboration. So it is an external, in addition to being an extension on Reveal.js slides, it is also a product that exists independent of Reveal.js. And so you could do all this stuff, including the mermaid integration that we just talked about in terms of creating a model and then tweaking the parts of those models. You can actually do that outside of Reveal.js. They do have a paid platform. They have free stuff, but then they have a paid platform as well. So in terms of collaboration, yes, capable, but no, not a focus of Excalidraw as it is embedded within a Reveal.js slide presentation. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, some other things here. Let's look and see what else we can do with this. There's a question mark in the bottom right. There's more documentation. Again, these open source-ish products, they're very open to feedback, and so I think it's helpful to provide them feedback. And so they have some facilitation for that here. There's a bunch of shortcut keys. So in addition to the little toolbar that we were operating within, it looks like we can use shortcuts. Now this is important because not all options are typically presented within toolbars. It's interesting, Diego. Did I mention to you that I'm putting all this stuff together into a book. I'm gonna do a book on using these sorts of platforms to author for social and behavioral science graduate students. I anyway, I don't. I'll share that with you maybe on Thursday if we chat on Thursday. But as part of the process of doing the research into that, um, I as part of the process of the research into that, I've been going back and looking historically at people that developed all of this stuff, and so
Didn't
the
you also write a book with Renata about SPSS?
yep, yep.
And did you use R for that too, or?
No, that was that was SPSS. Uh,
But I mean for the actual book, like to create like
oh
images and
no,
plots
no,
and tables.
no, no, no. We didn't. That was before. That was before I was kind of on this kick of doing everything within one platform. And actually, R is one of the things that opened up my eyes to these capabilities. So that was not something that is capable if you use a statistical package such as SPSS. It's just not. I don't. You 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 couldn't do it.
So what did you use for the SPSS book?
Word. Um, yeah, just a normal word processor. But so when I'm looking at the people that have done the work up to now in terms of giving us the tools that we currently have, there's a guy, Don Knuth, who's a computer scientist, and he's the one that came up with TeX. And TeX is now more commonly known as LaTeX or Bibliotech, and it's a typesetting system, and he used it initially to help him make more elegantly presented mathematical formulas in his books. And he paid attention to little details like the spacing between characters, and there's combinations of characters that are called ligatures. I don't know, but if you aren't careful in the specification of them, like they'll kind of overplot on each other, and so when copy editors go and they put material together, they are aware of these things like ligatures, and so what they do is they have a character that represents two characters next to each other instead of one character and another character independently. So this is all a long-winded way of saying that the typesetting orientation and philosophy and perspective is that there's more information that's needed to present and create something than what you have available on your keyboard or in a toolbar or wherever it might be. And so I think we're kind of seeing that here too. So there's more options in terms of creating more stuff than what you see available on this kind of hunt and peck visual toolbar thing. So we could go in here and get a little more fancy with things. They're stats for nerds. Let's try that. So what's a... Did that do anything? Oh, I'm getting a little something.
Yeah, like up in elements with height.
Elements with height. So I guess that's just telling us what we have in here, right? So if I were to... So it's 728, 234. If I exit out of that...
It's not really a stat though, because a stat has to come from like a sample. This is just this is just properties of the square. It's not a stat.
All right. Well, now you're validating them, Diego, because they said this is stats for geeks. No, you kind of validated that. Okay. So I have that selected, so it's giving me information on that element specifically as well, but then the overall scene. So yeah, there's some really neat stuff here. I'm glad that we ended up playing with this. I'm glad we ended up checking this out. There we go. Increase and decrease font size. Now that's I don't know if I saw that in the options. Maybe that's what this is. Oh, it looks like there are some. Looks like there are some different fonts that come loaded in, as well as, like I said, the documentation that I saw. It's gonna be a little bit of a hassle to go in there and give it a font that you're more interested in. Other than that, it looks like three might be loaded in as default. Okay. I guess we don't need to do much else with that unless you have any questions, Diego.
No.
Okay. Next week I was thinking, um, next week, how do I get out of this? Next week I was thinking about what Pasquale said in terms of, well, I might be interested in doing this stuff, but don't really know where to get started. So I was thinking about next week, just doing a live stream on how to get started using R or Python or whatever platform, whatever statistical program it is that you're using, how to envelop and wrap your statistical analyses with the documentation and support and summary of those analyses. What do you think?
So like to create
Just how to get
some
started.
kind of paper report.
Yeah, I think, I didn't do a lot of forethought into it, but I think what I'd probably, and maybe, yeah, are you going to be able to make it next week, do you think, or don't know yet?
Maybe.
The- well, I mean, think about it. So think about what advice you might give someone if they kind of look at some of the stuff that we're doing. The easiest way to see the things that we're doing is to look at the products. So look at the end and finished product. So for example, the slides. The slides are a very tangible thing that you can take a look at. Alicia says that's a good idea. Thanks, Alicia. I think we will do that. Yeah. So think about what advice you might give to someone if they said, "Hey, I'm sick of cutting and pasting my analyses into my paper," or "I'm sick of going back and every time I collect more data, going in and having to change you know, the number in my paper," because the stuff that we're doing
Yeah.
takes care of all of that. You don't need to do any of that stuff. So I think the advice I would probably give. Oh my God, I'm bleeding. I don't know what I did, but
Oh no.
my gums are bleeding. That's not good. Um, I think the advice that I would probably give to someone is to start with, unless you have a project that you really, um, need to work on. I would probably say start with these Reveal JS slide decks. These, they're practical, right? Students need to give presentation. Everyone needs to give a presentation.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give one soon.
Are
15
you gonna?
slides.
Do you think you're gonna use Reveal slides like we've been using or not?
Huh. I mean, the problem is that you have to do a lot of programming, and if you make one little mistake, then you might need to be fixed troubleshooting and fixing it for a long time. Uh, but if it's something big where you have a lot of tables and a lot of numbers, yeah, for sure. Because if you change something small, you don't want to have to go back and change the whole table again.
Yeah, gotcha.
And
Okay. Well,
plus, for printing figures, usually what I do is snip it, and I take a screenshot of the graph, and then I paste it in PowerPoint. But it always looks like too pixelated, or there's always problems with that.
that's why you do these slide decks, because you just mentioned it earlier. You can control the pixels, you can control the resolution, you can actually have the code in the same slide as you have the output. So think about that. I think next week that's what we'll do. Next week we'll do hey, if you want to get started, here's what we recommend. And then after we have our discussion, I'll cut it up and we'll put it out there as like a short 5-7 minute. Hey, if you want to get started, here's some suggestions.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thanks for stopping by. Thanks, Alicia, for stopping by as well. I think that's it. See you next week.
Okay, see you next week. Bye.